Alright guys, before we get into the podcast, let's get through the rigmarole first. Remember guys, this podcast posts each and every single Sunday. The first segment of the show, we go through all the Dolphins news you need to know about. The second segment of the show, we're going to go through the fan Q&A where we answer fans' questions. And that's it. We usually do 3 segments on the podcast, but we're missing one. If you guys have any suggestions, leave that down in the comment section below. Something that you would like to listen to. That would be obviously helpful feedback. But our first news story, we're going to start off with something positive, something nice, because there's a lot of negative news for the rest of the way. And it sucks because obviously we're going through a really weird period right now as Dolphins fans. Because we're going to be letting go of probably the best player on our team. The best young player on our team, and one of the best young players we've drafted in the last 15 years. So it's gonna suck, and I guess I'm sure everybody who's listening to this knows who I'm talking about. But we're gonna get into all that later in the show. Let's start off with something nice and positive. This first is it's not really a news, but it's basically an article I thought we would go through just to start off with something positive. Why the Dolphins will make the leap in the 2018 season. This article is from Bleacher Report. The Miami Dolphins lost 8 of their last 10 games in 2017. But prior to that, they had won 13 of their previous 17 regular season outings. They have it in them, especially with quarterback Ryan Tannehill's impending return. Much of the hot streak came with Tannehill under center. The 29-year-old missed the entire 2017 campaign and the final few weeks of the 2016 season due to knee issues. But he completed 71% of his passes and posted a career-high 103.4 pass rating in his final 5 games before suffering that injury, leading the Dolphins to victory in 4 of them. Correction, that is not his career high. They should try to keep stud free agent receiver Jarvis Landry around. They just might continue to get solid production out of youngster Kenyon Drake, 23, at running back, and Xavier Howard, 24, at corner. The same goes for veteran defenders Cameron Wake and Ndamukong Suh and Rashad Jones. If that happens and they can hit on the number 11th overall pick, Tannehill could give them a chance to get into the 2018 playoff picture. So there's a couple things I want to comment on this. First off, it's going to be very interesting to see what the Dolphins do at the 11th overall pick with everything that's going on, because we're going to get into it later and we're going to continue that narrative throughout the podcast, because it's very interesting what their plan is. Obviously they have a plan, just because if you read into it, I mean, if they don't have a plan, then I have no idea what they're doing. Then we're just not going to consistently be successful if this is how we're going to treat our organization and treat its players. That's not a recipe for success. Hopefully they do have a plan. But it's really going to dramatically affect what we do with the 11th overall pick. Outside of Jarvis Landry, we really don't have a consistent playmaker on the offensive side of the football. We're hoping Kenyon Drake can be that. We don't know if he can over a 16-game span. We know that he's super talented, but we know he has a really deep and terrible injury history. So that's a huge question mark there. Devontae Parker is a roller coaster of consistency. I mean, he could disappear for 2 months in the season, and then that could really hurt our offense for 2 months. Losing an X receiver for 2 months, that's just not okay. That's why we need to at least go out there and get somebody super cheap in free agency, if not that, or draft somebody in the later rounds of the draft. We just saw the LSU kid the receiver out of LSU, I can't remember, in the Senior Bowl. He tore things up. He might drop to a little bit, maybe second, third round, somewhere in there. So there's talent there at the receiver position. There's definitely talent in this upcoming draft at the running back position. That's super deep. So there are some playmakers there that we could select in the later rounds of the draft. But regardless, I think the Dolphins do need to take a receiver at some point. And I know that sounds insane, but I do think it's one of the more important things that we need to do because of the inconsistencies we've had with this offense. And to be honest with you guys, the inconsistencies with this team all goes back to the offense. The defense played pretty well on a consistent basis. If it wasn't for the offense's shortcomings, the defense would have been better. They were on the field way too long. The offense in 2016 when we made the playoffs, we're dead last in offensive snaps taken. So obviously that means we're not staying on the field. And that's when we made the playoffs. This defense is okay. It's fine. It can get us a wild card spot just fine. It's talented enough to do that. We saw some of the defenses that got in this year, like the Bills defense and stuff, teams of that nature that aren't super talented. Even the Steelers defense without Shazier isn't super talented, and we saw that in the playoffs with the Jaguars. So I think our defense in the AFC, if we're going to compare all the defenses, we're one of the best. I would say definitely is talented enough to make a wild card spot. So where the offense is really the core of the problem. We need to find a way to consistently score points week in and week out. And I think consistency at the quarterback position is the most important thing. And I think we're finally going to get that back with Tannehill coming back. I think, like I've said before, I think he's grown into his own. I think he's developed into a really good quarterback, and I think we're going to see the ramifications of that this upcoming season. But the key point is, if he comes back and he doesn't have anybody to throw to, and he's going to have somebody to hand off to. And the offensive line, I think, is going to be way better than last year. With Jesse Davis and some of the gyms the gym that we found on the offensive line. And again, Juwan James might be gone. So there's a lot of different moving parts that scare me. And just the thought of this offense could be worse is pretty scary. Because, it doesn't get that was the worst. It's funny. In 2016 under Adam Gase, we had the worst defense statistically in franchise history, and we still made the playoffs, which is weird because if you look at some of our playoff teams, other than the Dan Marino era, really, we usually have a really good defense. We're one of those franchises like the Steelers. If you look at our history, we've always had a really good defense in each era, other than maybe the Marino era. And even then, we had a couple good defenses. So, especially at the tail end of his career. But my point is the offense is the problem. And with all the moving parts that are going on, if the Dolphins do, which it sounds like they're going to, and we'll get into that later, get rid of Jarvis Landry. That's a huge hole that we have to figure out because there's nobody else other than him that's consistent at the receiver position. Kenny Stills is great, but I don't think he could be a dominant player week in and week out. He can be a game breaker, and he can really help out your offense schematically, but I don't think he's a 100-yard receiver week in and week out. I think Jarvis can be that, and I think he's proven that he is that. The point is we drafted really good core pieces to this offense that are super young and super talented, and really have developed in Miami and could have potential to become great players. Just to see them all leave Miami and go play for other teams. How familiar does that sound? When we talk about some of the great players that have left this organization, this dysfunctional, smelly organization at times that it has been, to go play and be great and have Hall of Fame careers. So not even just Hall of Fame careers, but Hall of Fame careers in that franchise. What I mean by that is they get inducted to the Ring of Honor in their franchise. When you talk about, I don't even want to get into all of them because you guys you should already know. So it's tough, man. Even in the last 3 years, we've lost 3 really good players that we drafted: Olivier Vernon, Rashard Matthews, and Lamar Miller. They're all gone and having pretty dang good careers. Other than Lamar had a drop-off year this year because of injuries, but Rashard Matthews in the playoffs. OV, still a pretty dang good player. If not for injuries, he would have had a better season. So this is a thread with this organization over the last 20 years, really, that we just continue to not retain homegrown talent, like the Green Bay Packers do. Especially the Packers are the best example of that. No other team really retains and grows their own talent for as long as they do. Because the Patriots, they're actually, people forget they suck. Their drafts are okay at best, but they're really a free agency organization. And I love when people bring up you can't win championships with by building your team through free agency. The Patriots are the best example of that. They continue to pick up great players through free agency and make it work, even obviously under the radar players, and they still make it work within their scheme. But we suck at it. We suck at retaining homegrown talent, and it sucks. Legitimately, you guys could see Jarvis Landry in a Baltimore Ravens uniform after this season, and you could see Ja'Wuan James in a Giants uniform after this season. So think about that for a second. Those are 2 Pro Bowl players gone. Gone. I mean, how many more are we going to lose? It's insane. I know we spent 10 minutes on that, but it's important. And, like again, without a right to, Jesse Davis could take over that tackle position, and we could replace the guard, and it would be way easier to replace a guard than it would be a tackle, obviously. So we're not in dire situations if that happens, but if Jarvis Landry goes, then we're gonna have to figure out who the heck is the next guy, because if we don't, then it's just a huge hole there. But again, I thought we would start with some optimism, because they do bring up a good point. Tannehill is obviously had a great end to that season, and I think he's going to bring stability back to this franchise and this organization, because it was an absolute joke in the 2017 season. It was an absolute joke. That was one of the hardest seasons to watch, not only because of the product that was put onto the field, but everything that was going on behind closed doors that we had to hear about every single week was just an embarrassment. So hopefully everything stabilizes. All right. Next news story, I think a bunch of you guys are going to appreciate this one, because I know a lot of you guys want to draft a quarterback. So this story is really going to interest you guys. So let's get into this. Stud quarterback prospect Josh Allen says, quote, "I would definitely welcome backing up Ryan Tannehill in 2018. When Josh Allen plays EA Sports Madden NFL, he chooses a quarterback who also wears number 17. Ryan Tannehill," Allen said Tuesday before his first Senior Bowl practice. "He was able to move better than the other quarterbacks, and his speed is everything in those games. He's got good ability, and it sucks that he tore his ACL." He's talking about Tannehill, not... I misspoke. This is a quote from Josh Allen. He's talking about Tannehill. Tore his ACL and had to sit out this year. But he's going to come back, and he's going to compete and play well. So he's talking about Tannehill. Just in case. Josh Allen plays they have similar traits. Allen may go as high as the first overall, or he could slip to the Dolphins, who pick 11 in the next NFL draft. Allen was scheduled to meet with the Dolphins brass Tuesday night, which he did do. He met with Adam Gase. After not attending the Senior Bowl last year, Miami Dolphins head coach Adam Gase was in Alabama Tuesday. Oklahoma State quarterback Mason Rudolph also said his meeting with Miami Tuesday night. So Mason Rudolph also met with Adam Gase. So how would Allen feel about backing up Tannehill for the 2018 season? He thinks it's a swell scenario, actually. Josh Allen said, quote, "I would definitely welcome it," Allen told the Daily Dolphin. "Being able to sit for a year and kind of experience what the NFL is like, settle into a new city, get your house situation, all of the marketing stuff you're not used to, being able to have that year to learn the offense and learn what the NFL defenses are like and the speed of the game. Then coming out year 2, you can focus on all football." Allen has a big arm and surprising mobility. He's somewhat raw. He's working to refine his footwork, but he can anticipate throws. He can throw on the move, and he has the mentality of a wild stallion, which is a weird thing to say. Allen is going to do something big when he has the chance. For the second straight day, Allen handled multiple questions about low accuracy numbers. We could say he was let down by many drops and a depletion of talent in Wyoming in 2017. Allen has a baby face, but he shows maturity and a confident ease in interviews. He's also, from what we've seen of him, that's the end of the article. But just to comment on this, from what we've seen of him, and I've watched a lot of Josh Allen the past week in preparation of actually talking about this, because he really does intrigue me. And I think he could be a very, very good player in the NFL. It might take time. Who knows how long it's going to take, but I like him a lot. From everything that we've seen, he's a great leader. After every touchdown he scored in Wyoming, he's the first one to congratulate his teammates. He gets them hyped. He was playing with terrible receivers on the outside. His offensive line was not very good. He was obviously almost on, if you look at all of his touchdowns this past season, almost all of them are on the run. And he just has to make a play by himself. I don't know what that offense would do without somebody like him. Honestly, seriously. I like him a lot. I think the things that I like about him is he shows great leadership. He has a great arm. His deep ball accuracy is very good. A lot of people complain about, oh, he doesn't throw with touch, he just throws with power. We've seen in the Senior Bowl that he can throw with touch, and I don't think that's a problem. And I think that if that is a problem, he shows up at training camp, oh, he can't throw with whatever. I think Adam Gase can figure that out, especially getting his hands on him day one week, in the NFL. So I think that's fixable if that is a problem. To me, it doesn't seem like it's a big issue. Just to highlight some of the things I really like about him. When I was watching, I watched a lot of his film. I think I've seen every single one of his games, and I know a lot of people complain about, well, he really struggled when he went up against better talent, and that's true. But he had this team around him was terrible, and obviously you want to tread lightly when you draft somebody like that, because you don't know, well, are we going to get the Josh Allen that we think that he can be, or are we going to get the Josh Allen that we've seen on tape when he's played some of these upper echelon schools? That's a question that's obviously subjective. That's whatever you think. I mean, in my opinion, I think he has the potential to be a really good quarterback, and here's why I think that. Some of the positives: he reminds me of Cam Newton. He really does remind me of Cam Newton, in a lot of different ways. I think the difference between him and Cam coming out is I think Josh is probably a better passer at this point in his career. He's not as athletic as Cam was. He's not as fast, but he's big. He can run. A lot of people compare him to Big Ben because of his size. He's way more athletic than Big Ben was coming out of college. He can... A lot of the things that in the NFL today, especially, and we know how important red zone offense is, the things that you can do with Josh Allen in those situations present a lot of problems for defenses. So his physical traits are off the charts. Like he could break. I mean, it's gonna be really tough to sack this guy. He has great football instincts. He moves really well within the pocket. His size helps him do that, obviously, because he's so tough to bring down. His splash play ability is off the charts, and I think if he can learn how to throw, because the one thing I haven't really seen him do, and like I said, all of his touchdowns are really outside of the pocket, making stuff happen. You really don't see a lot of his touchdowns with, he's not throwing with great timing or anticipation. It's a lot of him making plays by himself. And to me, that's a huge red flag. I haven't really seen him throw on a consistent basis within the pocket, within rhythm, with timing and anticipation. Obviously, that's something that you have to do on the next level. He really relies on his physical traits. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing, especially early on in your career. We've seen other quarterbacks have great success with that over the last few years, and I think Josh Allen can do that, but that doesn't mean he can't do those things. I just haven't seen him do it on a consistent basis. So that's a huge red flag. But the things I love about him, he seems like he's a fiery competitor, which is great. Something obviously the team, if we were to draft him, eventually could relate to if he was the future of the franchise. So that's great. I think his physical traits are off the charts. He's, like I said, he's like a Cam Newton. That's how athletic he is. And I think to have somebody who's 6'5", 230 pounds, presents a lot of problems for defenses, and his arm and his ability to stretch defenses, I think all of those things you have to love, and his ability to make throws on any platform, I think is something that you have to love. But obviously the question mark is, can he become a pocket passer? Very similar to Lamar Jackson, although I think Josh is a better natural passer than Lamar Jackson is. And I think he has the potential, and I think his ceiling is higher than Lamar Jackson. But they're very similar in the fact that we really don't know if they're ever going to transform into really good pocket passers, 2 or 3 years down the line, and really become an all-around great quarterback. Because right now, they're just really physically gifted players that are playing the quarterback position. So we really don't know if they'll ever develop into that. But if we were to take him with the 11th overall pick, that's the perfect situation for us and him, because he gets to sit behind Tannehill. He gets to learn the offense. He gets like the article said. He gets to learn how the NFL works and all that other stuff. And eventually he might take over the mantle. Who knows? Or you never know what we could do with him. And obviously we have him for pretty cheap for 5 years. And if Tannehill ends up being this god quarterback who is a future Hall of Famer within that 5-year span, then we keep Tannehill and trade Josh Allen for picks. Is the worst case scenario. So I like Josh Allen. I like him a lot. I love his potential. And the one thing that I really like about it is the situation he will get in Miami. Now, a lot of things have to work well if we draft him, and especially if the plan is sit if the plan is to sit him behind Tannehill, that means we're going to have consistency within the organization. That means we're going to have relatively the same coaching staff over those 5 years, similar to what the Patriots did with Garoppolo. They weren't constantly changing coaches in New England. So a lot of stuff rides on that. It's not just Josh Allen sitting behind Tannehill. It's obviously if he came here and within 2 years Tannehill's not here or Adam Gase isn't here and everything's different, and that's obviously going to hurt his development. If we do take Josh Allen, we have to stick with consistency and obviously stability within the franchise for it to work. And a lot of that rides on Steve, obviously the owner, our owner. So it's a very sticky situation. But I like Josh Allen as a player, and I like him as a talent, and I think he has great potential in the NFL. So we'll see what happens, but I like him a lot. I just, and again, you never want to say I like what he can be, because obviously we've seen a lot of quarterbacks come through the NFL like, oh, I love what he can be, and obviously sometimes they never turn into that thing that you think he can be. And that is a big part of Josh Allen. That's a big part of why I like him, is the thought of what he could be is very, very, very enticing. So that is a big red flag, though. Obviously, which is what we already went through. So let's move on here. This next news story is another story about the Dolphins quarterbacks situation. Von Miller on Miami Dolphins quarterback Ryan Tannehill says the Miami Dolphins already have their franchise quarterback. The Miami Dolphins may be considering a quarterback, or considering drafting a quarterback as high as the 11th overall pick in the NFL draft. But Broncos pass rusher Von Miller believes the team already has the quarterback that they need. Miller was having a conversation with a reporter about Ryan Tannehill, and asked him, what do you think he could take the next step to make it to the Pro Bowl? Von Miller said, quote, I think he has it in him. Miller said after a Pro Bowl practice on Saturday. Quote, this is from Von Miller, he's shown it before. He's shown that he is a franchise quarterback. He's got to stay healthy. That's the name of the game for everybody. Miller and Tannehill were teammates at Texas A&M. Tannehill missed Miami's defeat of Denver this season. In his only start against the Broncos, Tannehill passed for 228 yards and 3 touchdowns, but lost in a shootout to Peyton Manning, 39-36 in 2014. Miller said he had a good relationship with Miami Dolphins Adam Gase when the Miami Dolphins coach was in Denver. He said, quote, I love Gase, Miller said. He's one of my guys. I wanted him to let me play wide receiver, but he's one of my guys. Miller also advocated for the return of Broncos coach Vance Joseph, who was Miami Dolphins defensive coordinator in 2016. So yeah, that's the entire thing. Very interesting stuff. That's respect. Obviously they were friends at Texas A&M, but there's a lot of great players that had teammates that are in the NFL that aren't that don't say that about each other. So it's really cool. It's cool to see that Tannehill garners respect outside of the Dolphins organization. It's not just the Dolphins organization. Everybody's like, oh, everybody drinks the Kool-Aid of Tannehill within the Dolphins organization, but everybody outside of it knows what's really going on. It's cool to hear one of the best players of the last decade come out and say, yeah, he's a great player. He just needs to stay healthy. And he already obviously called him a franchise quarterback. So it's a little positive news for you guys there. Alright, so let's get into some of the negative news. This is a negative. We'll start with this because it kind of pieces all this stuff together. Let's start with this right here. Dolphins open to drafting first-round quarterback. This report comes from Pro Football Rumors. The Dolphins are planning to select a quarterback at the 2018 draft, and the club is even open to drafting a single caller in round 1, according to Adam Beasley of the Miami Herald. Miami, of course, had planned to utilize Ryan Tannehill as its starting quarterback for the 6th consecutive season, but were forced to sign the retired Jay Cutler after Tannehill suffered a torn ACL during training camp. Cutler, 35, finished just 21st in pass rating and 25th in adjusted net yards per pass attempt, as the Dolphins posted a 6-10 record. Given the timeline of Tannehill's injury, he should be ready for the start of the 2018 campaign. The Dolphins have committed to Tannehill as their starting quarterback for next season, but they haven't ruled out re-signing Cutler to serve as a backup. However, Cutler almost would surely have to accept less than $10 million that he received for the 2018 season. Cutler, who originally agreed to serve as a commentator for Fox Sports before inking a deal with Miami, has indicated he wants to play in 2018. Forget that, okay? If anything close to $10 million goes to Jay Cutler, I'm done. I will retire from watching football for the rest of my life. If Jarvis Landry doesn't get paid, and let's just say it's $4 million more than $10 million, which would be $14 million, which is apparently what he wants. I think it's even less than that. I think it's $13 million. So that's what, $3 million more? And if the Dolphins are willing to give $10 million to Jay Cutler to be the backup, how insane does that sound? How stupid does that sound? First of all, I don't even want him around our players. I don't even want him around the organization. I want him out. He doesn't need to be around us anymore. It's done. It's over with. It didn't work. The experiment was stupid. It just didn't work. It was one of the worst decisions we've made in the last how many ever years. Whew. I mean, this is what scares me about this organization. It's stuff like that. It's like, what are we doing? What are we trying to do? What is the goal? What is our organization? What is our front office? What does our owner think is the goal of this entire thing? What do we think it is? Because that kind of thinking doesn't get us to that goal. I mean, even the fact that they said that we are willing to bring him back as a backup, everybody should have stopped right there. Adam Gase should have said, stop the bus. Stop the bus. Gone all the way to the back of the bus and told Jay Cutler to get off the bus and never, ever, ever come back after the season that we just went through. He was one of the bigger reasons why we were so bad. And listen, it wasn't just him. It was a lot of different things. It was the lack of physicality in the running game. It was the lack of consistency with some of the young players on the offense. It was the distractions. It was a lot of different things. And trust me, I understand that. And it wasn't just Jay Cutler. But a lot of it was Jay Cutler. So why would we even want him to come back? I mean, how crazy does that sound? It just doesn't make any sense to me. I seriously, I would fire whoever the heck would say that. Oh, should we bring Cutler? No. And I'm trusting you to draft players for the future of this franchise? No. Go. You need to. You know what? He needs to go, and so do you. If that's the kind of mentality we're working with here. All right. This next news story: updated 2018 NFL draft order. So this isn't really different. We still have the 11th overall pick. I think I put this in here because I thought it would explain why we have the 11th overall pick, but it doesn't. So we're gonna move on. Just as an update. Whoever, like the 3 picks above us, it goes Chicago at 8, Raiders at 9, Niners at 10, and we have the 11th overall pick, which, hang on a second, San Francisco, yeah, that's right. Oh, God, that just frustrates me so much, man. Alright. So this is the bad news, guys, and brace yourselves, because this is going to hit home. This is going to hit home, and I honestly mean that, because this player is very special to this franchise. He means a lot to the organization. He means a lot to the fans. He means a lot to the productivity on the offensive side of the football. And I swear to God, all Dolphins fans need to be in unison in this. Whatever you think about Jarvis, and some people don't like Jarvis, honestly, and it's crazy to me, but he's a great player. He needs to stay here. He's a 3-time Pro Bowler in the first 4 years of his career, which is unprecedented, especially as a Dolphin. I mean, that's crazy. When's the last time we had somebody do that? That we drafted. Alright. Ravens-Dolphins talked about Jarvis Landry trade. The Ravens and Dolphins discussed a Jarvis Landry trade last offseason, according to Jeff of the Baltimore Sentinel. However, Miami's asking price was prohibitive. You guys know what I'm trying to say. And the deal did not go down. So it was obviously too much. The price was too high. Landry was on the verge of free agency this year, and it stands to reason that the Ravens couldn't make a play for him. We'll get into that here in a second. The Dolphins have interest in re-signing the wide receiver, but the two sides appear to be far apart on numbers. Recently, Landry characterized the talks as, quote, disrespectful. His agent, Demarius Bilbo, then made it clear that the client will not be taking a hometown discount to remain in Miami. We already heard the quote about what he said about that. It doesn't end there. By the way, the whole Ravens taking Jarvis Landry thing is very unlikely. They don't have a lot of cap space to get Jarvis Landry, especially since he's wanting, I think, 13 to 14 million a year, which is, I think, the same thing Devontae Adams is getting. But obviously, Ozzie Newsome is infamous at this point as a GM for not being able to select and draft a productive wide receiver. His long history of just selecting pretty bad playmakers at that position goes very deep. So we'll see what happens there. I mean, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think he's going to become a Raven. If he does, dude, that would be like the worst thing that could happen. I mean, it would be bad if let's just say the Bills or the Jets or the Patriots, for God's sakes, got their hands on him. But even the Ravens would just make me sick to my stomach. Because I don't care who he goes to, it's going to make me sick to my stomach because it's like, yeah, what is wrong with you as an organization is what everybody's laughing at us right now. They're like, please let Jarvis Landry go. It's God. All right. This next news story, latest on Dolphins Jarvis Landry. The Dolphins have not yet presented Jarvis Landry with another offer after his representation made a counter offer in mid-December. A source tells Barry Jackson of the Miami Herald, the wide receiver has already told people close to him that he doesn't expect to return to Miami. But Jackson cautions that a lot can happen between now and mid-March. As it stands, there is a sizable gap between the two sides. That report hit my heart, hit my soul. It just sucks. It sucks. Again, what does our organization think the goal is? What is the goal? Let's develop great players and then just let them go somewhere else and win a championship. Is that the goal? Is that the goal? Because it sounds like that's what the goal is. And this entire, like, I don't understand this is what I started with the podcast with, and this is what we're going to talk about right now. What is the plan? Is the plan to let Jarvis Landry go to see what Devontae Parker can turn into down the road, give him a long-term deal? We know Devontae Parker isn't the answer. Unless he has this immaculate season, which I honestly doubt's going to happen. We have a 3 years of evidence to that points it's like, yeah, no, he cannot stay healthy. He is not a consistent player. He also doesn't have the mentality to be a great player in this league. We've seen with Devontae Parker. We've seen Adam Gase come out and talk about how he needs to have a better mentality, he needs to have a competitive nature. If you ever hear that about a player, especially a talented player, it's probably never going to work because you have to have that mentality. And we've seen it time and time again with super talented players that just don't care. They just don't ever become what they could be. And Devontae Parker looks like he's never going to be that. So what is the plan? What is the plan as an organization? To get rid of Jarvis Landry to do what? To do what? Just to get rid of him? Or you can't make the cap space somehow to retain him? Because there are definitely ways to do that. It's very frustrating. I mean, Jarvis is literally... I would keep Jarvis... It hurts, man. I wish we could go back in time and be like, no, Kiko, you're not staying. Forget you, Andre Brandt. Like, all these players that we were open to re-signing. TJ McDonald is nowhere near. None of those players are even in the same dang orbit as Jarvis Landry. Not even close. Not even close. And we were willing to give all of these different players long-term deals. It just, again, it makes me wonder when you see Olivier Vernon in a Giants uniform, when you see Lamar Miller in a Houston Texans uniform, when you see Rashard Matthews in a Tennessee Titans uniform, okay? When we saw Wes Welker in a Patriots uniform, when we saw Rob Ninkovich in a dang Patriots uniform, for all of those years, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. For God's sakes, when you're seeing J.J. in the Eagles uniform, in the Super Bowl, when you see him in Super Sunday, or whenever the Super Bowl is set, just think about that for a second. What is the mentality of this organization? Seriously. It's honestly mind-boggling. One thing before we move on. There was once a quote from Mike Tannenbaum that for some reason was just like skipped over, and I swear to God, it was one of the dumbest quotes I've ever heard in my life. They asked him about, because I think this was the offseason, we lost Lamar, Ovi, and a bunch of other players. They asked him about what he thinks about that, and he goes, he looks at it like a college. You guys can find this quote, and I think there's a video of it. He says he looks at it like a college. He thinks it's a great honor that these players are developed in Miami and then go on to have great careers. If I was sitting next to him, I would have punched him in the face. Are you kidding me? What executive says something like that? See, like, who says that? And at the time, I really didn't think much of it. I was like, yeah, I guess you can't keep them all. It's the salary cap era. You can't keep them all. But the fact that he looks at it like that, you should have said, yeah, it sucks. The salary cap sucks. It sucks. I wish we could keep them all. Instead, he says something stupid like that. Like, if I was Stephen Ross, I would have been like, nope, you're out. Nope. It honestly hurts to hear some idiot say that's in charge of. But people don't understand, man. This means a lot to people. The Dolphins do. This isn't just some kind of joke, okay? It means a lot to all of us, and to hear somebody who runs it say something like that is honestly infuriating. Okay? It sucks. Alright. Moving on. Let's see here. What do we got next? Okay. New Dolphins offensive coordinator, Dallin Loggins, says, quote, "We've got to do a better job with young talent." It didn't take Dallin Loggins long to learn one basic truth about the Dolphins offense. Quote, "We have a talented group of young players." This is from Dallin Loggins. This is a quote from him. "That we've got to do a better job with next year than we did last year," said Loggins, who's only a few weeks into his role as the offensive coordinator of the Dolphins. Loggins arrives from Chicago, where he served for 2 seasons in the same capacity because he had succeeded Adam Gase as the Bears' offensive coordinator. Loggins kept tabs on the Dolphins when Gase first came to Miami, although he admitted he's having to, quote, get caught up on the offense's performance from 2017. The more studies, the more he'll see there's work to be done following a season in which the team finished 25th in total offense and 28th in scoring, but already he senses there's a nucleus to work with at the receiver, especially if the Dolphins can keep, again, here we go, if the Dolphins can keep the group intact, which they're not going to do. Much revolves around Jarvis Landry's impending free agency. The hope being Loggins can work with Landry's league-high 122 catches, 987 yards, Kenny Stills 847 yards, Devontae Parker 670 yards in another injury-plagued season, and Jakeem Grant's 203 yards as he continues development. He said, quote, "I'm really excited to sit down and talk to assistant head coach Sean Jefferson and receivers coach Ben Johnson about those guys individually," Loggins said. Quote, "When you watch the tape, you see splash plays on splash plays. It could be a really good group." Collective bargaining rules limit the type of contact coaches can have with players in the offseason. So Loggins said he and the other coaches will be, quote, "figuring out where we failed and where we need to get better going forward." The Lions and Steelers led the NFL with 16 passes over 40-plus yards. The Dolphins were tied for 25th with just 5. Oh, God. But there were the late season emergence of Grant, who finally was able to display his sprinter speed on offense with a 65-yard touchdown catch with the Chiefs. And again, it wasn't his fault. He was just never given a chance to do that. And when he finally got the chance, look what he did. The deep ball would give running back Kenny Drake better breathing room. Toward that end, the Dolphins know that they have what they have in Stills, who scored 15 touchdowns in the past 2 years. If Loggins can solve the Parker riddle, he'll become the first to do so. Parker, the former first-rounder, was limited in 12 starts in 2017, which doubled his total of his first 2 seasons. In 42 games he's played, he has managed 3 100-yard games. Oh my God! And listen, man, I was on this Devontae Parker train since we drafted him. I love Devontae Parker. I loved his potential. I'm starting to really not like Devontae Parker. Trust me, especially after this last season. I just dude, we know what you are at this point. And if you're going to continue to do this, then you have until your 5th year option to figure it out, and then you're gone. For the final quote, he says, "We're just trying to keep coaching these guys. Hard to get them to where we want to go next year." Wait. We're just excuse me. Let me read that again. We just got to keep coaching these guys hard to get them to where they want to be where they want to go next year. Logan said. So there's a lot of things I want to say about this. First of all, we got to do a better job of giving these kids chances. And if we don't, then that's on Adam Gase. That's something that he did not do well last year. I don't know if it was a trust issue. Who knows what the real reason was. But when he did give these guys chances, they shined. When he talked about Kenyon Drake, who was thrown into the fire, obviously, even when Damian Williams got hurt, and then obviously when J.H.I. was traded, he was just thrown right into the fire. He proved us all right, not wrong. He proved us all right as fans. And Jakeem Grant did it as well. He proved us all right as well. Dramatically changed our screen game, by the way, especially since how abysmal it had been when we were throwing screens to Juice and Kenny. Jakeem just has great lateral, and he can move east to west, north to south. Not just his speed and his quickness is just unlike any other. So he's obviously a perfect fit for that. So yeah, and obviously his special teams background really helped him in that area. But I forgot really what I was trying to point out here. Other than obviously, trying to keep everybody together, which probably most likely isn't going to happen. Hopefully, yeah, Dow's talking a big game coming into this season. I'll tell you that right now. He needs to back it up. If he's like, oh yeah, we're gonna work, yeah. I'm glad somebody's actually saying this stuff, pointing out the flaws that we, we did this really wrong last year, which he's right. We haven't done a good job of giving young talent a chance, and I wouldn't say develop, because the one chance that they have all had, they've capitalized on. So we don't even know if they have developed, for God's sake. So at least he's doing that, and I like that kind of a mentality. Yeah, this wasn't right, that wasn't right. We need to do a better job of this, and this. So I do like that. This next news story. 2018 NFL Draft. Miami Dolphins want quarterback depth beyond Ryan Tannehill. If everything goes according to the Dolphins' plans, Ryan Tannehill will be their starting quarterback for years to come. Plans don't always work out, of course, and they haven't with Tannehill the past 2 seasons. But even if he comes back healthy and continues the improvement he showed under Adam Gase in 2016, Miami management wants to get younger and better at the position to avoid another disaster. That means quarterback is in play with the number 11th pick in the draft, and the Dolphins are doing extensive evaluation on Josh Allen and Baker Mayfield at the Senior Bowl. Says, I think this is, who's this quote? Okay, so this is a quote from Mike Tannenbaum. Mike Tannenbaum said, quote, "You have to balance winning for today and developing for tomorrow." Yeah, and we're going to develop, and then they're all going to go somewhere else. That's our plan, guys. We just develop players for everybody else. Welcome to the Dolphins. And Mike Tannenbaum's mentality. Developing for tomorrow. And last year obviously didn't go the way we hoped, Vice President Mike Tannenbaum said this afternoon. He said, quote, "It gave us a chance to reflect on some things we could do better, and a part of that is making sure we've got good depth at many positions as possible, knowing that over the course of a 60-game season, they're going to play. That's what history shows us." So I guess he's saying that they're obviously, you're going to get injured. When Tannehill went down early in training camp, the Dolphins weren't satisfied proceeding with Matt Moore as their number 1 quarterback for the season, and they had no one behind him. That's not a situation they want in the future. Miami turned Jay Cutler out of retirement with a $10 million contract, as opposed to rolling that space over into the next season's salary cap, and it didn't work out. Cutler completed 62% of his passes through 19. Yeah, we get it. The Dolphins have also turned 27-year-old Dreamin' quarterback David Fells, who has the chance to be the backup next year, but he wouldn't seem to have the upside of a first rounder or second rounder in this year's draft. Philosophically, the Miami Dolphins want a quarterback that can play behind Tannehill as a rookie and eventually develop into a starter or a trade asset if Tannehill submits himself as the franchise player. Just like I said earlier, you pick Josh Allen. If Tannehill develops into this great quarterback, this Pro Bowler, first team All-Pro type guy, okay, we got Josh Allen behind him. Who wants him for throughout his 5 years, obviously, because you can keep him around because he's so cheap, and we get, who knows, a first-round pick for him, an extra first-round pick for him. To be honest with you, Josh Allen could suck in practice and stuff, and if Tannehill performs at a high level, there's a lot of good things that could happen, is my point. So some of the things I want to go through here that I just find, ridiculous, really, is I'm sick of the same old shtick here. I hate robots. I hate not just this crap and same stuff that people just spit out of their mouths over the course of, especially after after a bad season. It's the same old. Yeah, we just got to reflect on what we did wrong. It's every single year. We just really want to reflect on what we did wrong and go back and fix that. Really? Really? Is that what you want to do? Because I think that's pretty obvious. How about you answer the question? What are you going to do to fix the issues? I hate that more than anything. And it's the same old thing that we've heard a million times, especially from Mike Tannenbaum, who's been here for I don't even know how long now. Somehow has survived all of this, organizational change from the Philbin era to the tail end of the Philbin era. It's honestly frustrating, and I'm sick and tired of it. But you know what? Yeah, and again, it's a good point. It's a really good point. Oh yeah, this is what I wanted to point out. I forgot. I was completely lost my train of thought here. They said we want to get younger. Where's the exact thing? He said, okay, here we go. You have a chance. This is a quote from Mike Tannenbaum. You have to balance winning for today and developing for tomorrow. Okay. And they want to. This whole article, it says the Dolphins want to get younger at quarterback and draft a player. All this other stuff, they're open to it, right? Then why the heck are you guys considering bringing back Jay Cutler? Why would you even consider it? Why are you contradicting yourself? It's either the report is wrong or they are being stupid. So that's a whole nother situation. I was like, what the heck are they trying to do here? And Jay Cutler, get out of our organization. Seriously. Okay, so we got... Alright, here we go. Next news story. Will the Miami Dolphins pick up Devontae Parker's option? Devontae Parker was supposed to have a breakout season. He was supposed to be a monster. He was supposed to be a Pro Bowler. He was supposed to dominate the NFL. Yeah, so none of that happened. Instead, Parker had less catches and less yards and less touchdowns, and in general, folks have less patience for Parker's potential. Preach. A former teammate of Parker once said at a certain point, you have to stop talking about his potential. And so we are here. Parker has completed 3 seasons, and because he was a first-round pick, the Dolphins need to decide if they'll exercise a 5th-year option this offseason. All it does really is allow Miami to keep Parker's rights. If they want to retain him, Parker's option, and Parker isn't injured next season, they can do so with no salary cap penalty. It seems that they may be the fate of that may be the fate of offensive tackle Juwan James, who had his 5th-year option picked up before last season, and who now does not seem likely to return on a 1-year deal. But Parker still has the potential. Honestly, it makes complete and total sense to pick up the contract, because if somehow Parker has 1,200 yards next season and stays healthy and does all the things most everyone believes he's physically capable of doing, they would regret if they didn't have the 5th-year option. Will they pick up the 5th-year option? This is a quote from Mike Tannenbaum again. He says, quote, Devontae Parker is another guy Devontae is another guy we drafted here. So Mike, does that mean you're going to let him go? I mean, my God, what is that? Why are you even starting off like that? We want to see him reach his potential. I know it's important to him. Obviously, he's dealt with injuries, which is, I'm sure, as frustrating to him as it is to us. We're going to keep working with him and try to get him to be the best player he can be. Obviously, he has a big ceiling and a lot of ability. He's worked hard at it. Like I said, I think it's important to him. In terms where we'll go with his contract and his option, we have plenty of time to make that decision. So that's a ways down the road. That is the same thing he said about every player. How about just shoot straight? How about just shoot straight here, bro? Just tell us. If you're not, I mean, obviously we know the situation. And this whole, just let's go back to that quote. Devontae is another guy we drafted here. Yeah, another guy we drafted here that, okay, first of all, I don't know if Devontae Parker will ever become something great. But if he ever leaves here and does do that, I mean, yeah, he's another guy we drafted here that we let go that became great somewhere else. So no promises about Jarvis Landry and no promises about Parker. Again, he's pointing out that too. I mean, like, what the heck is going on in this organization? And frankly, they should they make any promises about Parker now? It makes no sense to see. Oh, you could just say this. You don't have to make any promises. Yeah, we're going to see how he develops down the road. If he doesn't pan out, then we're going to make a move. And the whole thing, like, I know you have to be sensitive because obviously these players work for you, but it is what it is at this point. Will Miami bet on Parker for 2 more seasons, assuming they haven't completely given up and try not to trade him? Not a ridiculous notion, probably. This is another quote from Mike Tannenbaum. Again, we'll look at it this offseason as the offseason evolves and where that goes. Okay, whatever. All right, so yeah, basically no, they don't know if they're going to keep him. Big news. The Dolphins don't know what they're doing. They're like a 4-year-old child that doesn't know how to walk. Or not a 4-year-old child. They're like a 2-month... I don't know with an analogy here that I can use. But yeah, you know what I'm trying to say. This is ridiculous. Can we just hand the keys to Adam Gase? I know it's rare that has ever worked in the NFL where a head coach is in charge of everything because it is so much. But dang it. If that means Mike Tannenbaum isn't our executive anymore, then I'm all for it. And I honestly hope, listen, I hope the best. I hope we have a tremendous draft. And, you know, not to hate on the front office too much because we've had pretty good drafts over the last, since Adam Gase got here, we've had pretty good drafts. So it's not like Mike Tannenbaum has done a bad job. What I'm criticizing is his ability to retain homegrown talent. And his mentality about it is just what bothers me. That's what bothers me. All right, this next and last news story. Dan Marino could be valuable resources on Dolphins drafting a quarterback. Dan Marino, one of the best quarterbacks in NFL history. This report comes from the Sun Sentinel. One of the best quarterbacks in NFL history will again serve as a key resource this week as the Dolphins decision makers scout talent at the Senior Bowl and try to decide whether it's worthwhile to draft a quarterback early. The question is, if the Dolphins opt for a quarterback early, how much would they listen to Marino? It's good to have Dan around, General Manager Chris Greer said Wednesday at the Senior Bowl. Obviously, a player that was of his caliber when he played and one of the all-time greats, and someone that is very respected. It's great having him around in the meetings. Yeah, he's more knowledgeable about the game than anybody else in this organization. So yeah, I would listen to the man. Somebody who has had a Hall of Fame career, who's been one of the greatest iconic sports figures in sports history, for God's sakes. Yeah, I would hope you would listen to the man. We'll sit and we'll pick his brain, and he'll ask us questions as well. The Dolphins, of course, will have Ryan Tannehill back at quarterback, but he missed the last 19 regular season games due to a left knee injury, which is crazy. Anyway, the Dolphins must decide whether it's a time to plan for the future, meaning drafting a quarterback in the first or second rounds, or plan for 2018, meaning addressing more immediate concerns earlier in the draft. If they decide to plan for the future, Marino, who has attended the last 3 Senior Bowls, could have significant influence. And that is a man, by the way, Dan Marino, who cares about the organization, that cares about where it's going, that cares. He's not worried about his job. He cares about the organization, and he loves it. He loves what the Dolphin stands for. Okay? Now, he is so... he is laser focused, for God's sakes. And obviously he's a very knowledgeable man. Few in human history have done it as well as he has. It should be pointed out Marino isn't a scout. His official title is a special advisor to the president and CEO. and probably doesn't know the prospects as well as General Manager Chris Grier, Executive Mike Tannenbaum, or others in the organization. The only one that I would argue that probably knows more about that, and listen, if Dan Marino could look at a quarterback for 2 seconds, especially in a practice, and see how they work and see how they perform, I would trust him over almost anybody. And the only one that I could argue that might know more or just as much is Adam Gase. Like, those are the two guys that I completely trust. I do not, Chris Grier I have some respect for because of what he's done over the last few years. Mike Tannenbaum is the only one I just, it's just like, However, he certainly knows what it takes to be successful NFL quarterback. He also worked closely with Tannehill in practices, games, meetings, and film sessions on a daily basis for several years. Grier said Marino is incredibly valuable to the organization. Chris said, quote, he sits on in the coaching meetings with the coaching staff. Grier said, Dan is a great guy and a great to have around. He's all in with all of us, and wants the best for us and for the Dolphins as well. Miami has the 11th pick in the draft. There's a chance quarterback such as USC Sam Darnold, Wyoming Josh Allen, UCLA's Josh Rosen are all gone by that time. In that case, they could leave the Dolphins with their first or second round picks to choose among Oklahoma's Baker Mayfield, last season's Heisman Trophy winner, Louisville's Lamar Jackson. Let's see here. Who else we got here? Mason Rudolph, obviously. Luke Falk. Who else? Trying to think of them all right now. You could get Drew Lock at some point. There's a lot of good quarterbacks. Marino, a regular at practices and quarterback meetings during the regular season, might be the most qualified set of eyes in the franchise, to spot intangibles that could translate into victories at the position. Marino, of course, doesn't have anything close to the final word on whether to draft a quarterback early, but you'd think he'd be an important resource in the decision, obviously. I mean, the man, listen, if I'm Stephen Ross, this is what I'm doing. I'm cutting it down to Adam Gase, Dan Marino. Dan, you're the executive football operations. Adam, let it roll. Okay, that would be amazing. John Elway has had great success in Denver, and obviously he has a passion for that. Dan Marino obviously knows what the heck he's doing. I don't know if he can, beyond the quarterback position, I'm sure the man knows what to look for in defensive players, receivers, all that. And you know what? I would keep Chris Grier as the GM because I do like Chris. I think he seems like a good man. He seems like he knows what he's doing. I think he's proved himself over the last 3 years. Now, who's making those decisions, I don't know. But it seems like Chris Grier knows what he's doing. And again, not to hate on Mike Tannenbaum, not to pile on him. I think he's made some good decisions. Jakeem Grant was his sole decision. He wanted to draft him. He was the only one in the room that wanted to draft him. And obviously he ended up getting his way. And so far, it seems like it's going to pan out. So he's done some good things as well. He's made some good decisions as well. We've had some pretty solid drafts over the last 3 years. It's not like the man's doing a bad job of bringing talent in here. It's just some of the decisions he's made with some of the talent that is on the fringe that I am criticizing highly of, because that's something that we've suffered through in other regimes, and I don't want that to continue with this organization, and it just continues and it continues and continues, and it sucks. Again, I hope they have a plan. I hope this isn't just some kind of willy-nilly, hey, we're running over here, and I'm sure they do have a plan, and I hope the plan works, and I hope it pans out, obviously. Because I'm sick and tired of this. The Bill Belichick Tom Brady era is coming to an end. Whether it comes to an this offseason or 2 years down the line, at some point it's getting close to the end. I want to be I want to rule over this division. I want to be that great. That's what all Dolphins fans want. That's what all sports fans want. I want the Dolphins to be the Dolphins again, and hopefully that can happen because I love Adam Gase. I love him to death. I think he's a great coach, and I think he can lead us there. And hopefully it all works out in the end. But just some of the decisions and some of the directions that this franchise is going in is up for some serious critical criticism. Like, there are some serious questions that we all have, and hopefully that get answered in these next few months, because it doesn't look good right now. And I wish we had 2020 vision. It could just look at it all, and we could see the future and all this other stuff, because at this point we're really left in no man's land. We don't know what's going to happen with this organization. I'm excited about what we're going to do in this draft, because it's a big mystery, because there's so many things we could do with the 11th overall pick, and I'm excited about that. That gets me excited as a fan. And I'm excited because Adam Gase he has such a good eye for talent at the quarterback position, and what that means for this draft gets me excited, because there are so many talented prospects in this draft. That gets me excited. But this whole Jarvis Landry situation, listen, there's a lot of positive, there's a lot of things to look forward to, but there's a lot of question marks as well. So hopefully those all get answered by now and into March, and we'll see. We'll see, because I think, I like our organization over the Jets and Bills. I like our head coach better. I like our quarterback better. I like some of the players that we have on this roster better. I think we have a chance here to really take a huge step forward and put this whole Jay Cutler business behind us. So I am Skagster1083. Let me know what you guys think. It's a whole winding road and ball of yarn of emotions. And I'll see you guys in the next one.